Welcome to Get Better Basketball Live. I'm Coach DeMarco, and today my guest is Coach Mark Cascio, owner of Courtside Consulting, a former state championship coach in high school, and current assistant basketball coach at Appalachian State University. Coach Cascio has a wealth of knowledge of the game of basketball, and you're going to love this episode. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up now. Coach DeMarco here at Get Better Basketball Live, and today I have Coach Mark Cascio, assistant basketball coach at Appalachian State University and owner of Courtside Consulting. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Excited to talk some basketball with you.
Coach, I appreciate you joining me again. I know you're highly sought after in the basketball community. You have so much great knowledge of the game. Always appreciate following you on Twitter and everything that you have to share. I've shared a couple of your SSGs and different things in my weekly newsletter previously. And I know this is an exciting time for you right now. I want to congratulate you on the new job at Appalachian State University and just ask you, you're a very successful high school coach, former state champion, and what made you decide to transition up to the college game?
I think that's a great question because I think as young coaches or high school coaches, they always want to, I say always, I think everybody kind of goes through, getting the itch of going up in a level. And I would have the itch on and off, to be honest with you. I loved where I was, and I just wanted to make sure that it was the right fit. And I had to challenge myself a lot, that bigger wasn't always better, and the grass wasn't always greener. And that's something that, I really struggled with making the decision. And everything about this job was just really appealing to me from the X's and O's standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, a location for me and my family, and then an opportunity to work for Coach Angel Elderkin, who has been everywhere. She started her career under Pat Summitt and has been at LSU, Virginia, so has been at the Power 5 level and is building something special at App State, and I wanted to be a part of it. So definitely a tough decision to leave, but the last 3 months have been extremely positive.
For high school coaches who are watching, we do have a pretty big following of high school coaches out there, and just wanted to ask you about this transition into the college game. And if there's other coaches who are interested in kind of taking that step into college basketball from high school, what was that process like for you? And what are the things that you did that helped you to get this job at Appalachian State?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think we all know this, that it's about relationships. I think most jobs you get, it's about who you know, but also just being able to add value somewhere. And then there's a lot of great coaches that don't get this opportunity. So like, I just think I'm really lucky, to be honest with you, to be where I'm at. And, to move up in a level, it's definitely an adjustment. You're trading certain problems for another set of problems. But, I would say, just reiterate, the grass isn't always greener. So just don't jump at the first thing, because if you're getting opportunities, it means that you're doing something right, and you can be selective and wait for the right one and trust that more will follow.
Coach, I just wanted to ask, just thinking about your transition. I know you coached boys basketball in high school and now transitioning over to the women's game. And I was fortunate to have coached both boys and girls basketball in high school and get that experience. So in just kind of your short time transitioning between the men's game and the women's game, what are some of the things, the similarities you've seen? Are there any differences or some of the things you really like about this transition?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because honestly, I didn't know what to expect because one, I'd never been at the college level, the Division I level before. And then two, I'd never really been around a women's basketball program, like up close and personal. Watched on TV, but that's always hard to translate, the speed of the game and the physicality. So I was really interested early to see. And when I got up here in June And really, even before that, I was able to work out one of the players at a one-on-one. When the team started filtering in June, we started having workouts, and instantly, um, it just became apparent that basketball was basketball. It was all the same. I felt like I was just at a normal practice, and I would say that the similarities is really anything you do on the men's side, you can do on the women's. Um, the differences, obviously, the game is more below the rim. So that's a little bit different just as far as shots. I think shots around the rim are missed more frequently on this side just because they're not elevating as much. And I think you have to teach them to be a little bit more physical. I think some guys are just, naturally going to be a little bit more physical, but uh, the positive side is our kids are very eager to learn. I think since basketball doesn't always come natural to certain players, that they want to learn, they ask great questions, and we recruit great kids. So we've just had some really great practices and workouts, and I feel like we're getting a lot done, and most of that's a testament just to our players.
I really appreciate you saying, the kind of basketball is basketball, and there's so much that translates between men's and women's basketball. And I saw that firsthand as someone who coached boys, and then went over to the girls' game. And really, my style of coaching was very, very similar in the things we did and the expectations I had. And really happy to hear you say that and share that in your experience as well. And I think you'll see that more and more as you go along, with this team. So I just wanted to, ask you, mentioned recruiting, and that's something that I think for a lot of coaches out there, from high school coaching then to college, that recruiting experience. And what's that been like for you now? I know the summer, there's a hot period where you're getting out to tournaments and recruiting. So what's that transition been like for you, in the recruiting game?
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a new challenge. Like I said, you always trade one thing for another when you move levels or move jobs. And recruiting was definitely something that is new at this level. And then, the trade-off is that you're not teaching so much like you would in high school. So recruiting is a huge time commitment. I would say, when you're a head coach, I feel like you never let things go. Just 24/7, you're thinking about your team and your program. And as an assistant coach in college, I think you get the same thing with recruiting. Is like every single day you can be recruiting whenever you're allowed to. So there's always something to do. It's been fun connecting with coaches. I connect with a lot of coaches in my consulting program, and this has allowed me to connect with even more coaches. It's been great to talk to these girls on the phone, and then you go out and see them play live, and you kind of put a game to the personality. And we're trying to see if they fit us, and they're trying to see if we fit them. And that's just been fun, is figuring that out, because that's something at the high school level you can't always do, is pick your players. Um, but I will say, going back to some advice for coaches looking to make the jump is, I think a lot of coaches think like, oh, if I wasn't a high school coach, I would just be able to do basketball all day, every day. And there is some truth to that, but it's not like you're watching film every day, or, there's compliance, there's recruiting, there's meetings. It's a grind, it's a sprint, but it's really, really fun.
I'm sure it is a lot of fun, and I'm sure you do a great job, as a coach that puts relationships first. I'm sure you'll land some great recruits at Appalachian State, and I know they already have in the past as well. And I want to segue. Before I do, I wanted to stay with the recruiting topic and just ask you this. I see a lot of stuff on Twitter, social media, and what coaches look for in recruits when they're out, at AU tournaments or high school games, whatever it might be. So what is it that Appalachian State looks for in a player, or that you look for in a player when you're out on the recruiting trail?
Well, I think first, I think you have to know what you're looking for as far as position wise. How many positions do you need to recruit? We're fairly positionless. So we're, we're just kind of looking for best available. And we feel like if we can just get some girls that can hoop, we'll figure out as far as, system wise or where to play them. So we're just really looking for girls that can play. And what I mean by that is they can dribble, pass, shoot, handle the ball, they defend, rebound. I think when you're a specialist, like you're just a knockdown shooter, that's obviously has a ton of value. And if you can just do one more thing pretty well, then that's the game changer. But just looking for well-rounded players. I'm looking for players that compete on both ends of the floor, because I'm just a big believer. If you bring kids in that just are natural competitors, it solves half of your potential problems. And no coach wants to be begging their players to play defense or begging their players to share the ball or put winning first. So when you recruit those kids, I think that saves a whole lot of headache. So we're definitely looking for that. And then, you see the stuff on Twitter, which you and I are both active on. And coaches are saying, we don't care how much you score. We don't care if your team goes 6-0 in a weekend. And there's so much truth to that. To be honest, when I'm watching games in the live period, it's like I know what the score is only because I want to see how they respond. If their team gets down by 20, how do they respond? If it's a tight game, do they rise to the occasion, or do they kind of sink to the level of their habits? And so I don't know. I think everything that you see on Twitter is exactly right. I think the priority is playing the game the right way and competing as hard as you can. If you do those things, your skills will show through.
Great perspective, Coach. And I feel like you have such a great pulse on the game of basketball. And I think that's why so many coaches out there, follow you and really enjoy and appreciate what you share on social media and beyond. I know you do clinics, and I know you have your courtside consulting as well. So you're doing a lot for the game of basketball. And always like to ask coaches about the influences on them as they kind of rose through the ranks. So as you were a young coach to very successful high school coach, and now, of course, an assistant coach in college, who was the one person, or maybe a couple of people, who have been most influential in your career as a basketball coach?
Gosh, tough to even narrow it down to a couple, so I'll go quickly through a few. Kemper Todd was my head coach in high school, where I was an assistant for 2 years. As an assistant to him, I learned a ton about just practice organization and running a program, being organized, doing things the right way. And he was a man in motion coach, which gave me just a great foundation to kind of build from. And then as I started branching out a little bit as far as style of play, Doug Novak was definitely a big one, who people, I feel like in the last year or two, are just kind of learning who that is nationwide. I think regionally he was always a name in like the Carolina area when he was at the Citadel and Anderson, but now he's at Bethel. And I got a chance to meet him in 2010. And really that started just changing the lens in which I saw the game through. Randy Sherman's another one. I think he's a great sharer. JP Nurbin is a consultant or a mentor that I work directly with. I mean, he's really helped me. He helps in the X's and O's a lot, to be honest with you, because he's great as far as like giving feedback and, like Doug Lamov's book, The Coach's Guide to Teaching. JP's been on similar things for years. And so I've kind of been blessed to get to know him closely. So yeah, those are a few, man. And I could go on. You've mentioned a couple of times how much I've done for the basketball community. It's funny, I don't see it that way. Like even talking to you today, I'll probably get more out of this than you will, just because it gets me thinking the game all over again in a different way.
Absolutely. So before we transition topics, just a couple of more questions about your role at Appalachian State. And just wanted to ask you, when you became an assistant coach and you kind of got started, what are the first couple things that you did as you jumped into the program and started to get to work?
Yeah. So I guess some of the first things that I did is one, I was tasked with building a recruiting database for us. I'm huge on organization, and I think most college programs are going through this where they didn't have a chance to see players live with COVID. They couldn't get out in July, couldn't go to high school games. So you kind of had to pick up the pieces from what you could gather on film and just phone conversations. So the recruiting database was something that was a beast, but has been really helpful to us. Um, I've done a lot of skill development stuff, and Coach Angel and I have just been talking a lot about style of play and how to iron out all these ideas, and uh, what do we want to continue to do that they've been successful with, and what are some things that I can add. And we actually have a 3-day kind of staff summit coming up next week that I'm excited about. We'll continue those conversations, but really from I worked remotely for about a month. So that was a lot of recruiting, a lot of Zoom meetings. And then I moved up to North Carolina in June. And, day one, I'm running player workouts, which was great. We had transfers on campus and some freshmen on campus. Um, so it's really just been kind of full speed ahead. We've really focused more on the skill development aspect more than anything. So, and all the coaches kind of have their hand in that, but I guess I'm bringing some new ideas, and we're experimenting with some new stuff. It's been really good.
Coach, last question I want to ask about your kind of transition into this role. What are you most excited about, with this new opportunity? And what do you think some of the challenges that you foresee in this new role as you adjust and you adapt over, the course of this first season?
Man, good question. I'll go through what I'm excited about. I'm excited about a ton, just to be around new coaches. That includes our staff, and we're pretty close quarters with the men's staff too. So just to be around a lot of people that can help make me better, because I just think when you're around great people, it's going to rub off on you. And those basketball conversations have been really great, and also just seeing how people operate, see how organized people are, how they do things a little different has made me better. Just being around Coach Angel and the way that she runs a program and builds culture and builds relationships with players has already been, a learning experience for me. And I think that's also something that I'm excited about, is just relationships with the players. It's funny, man. It's all the same. You got to show that you care about them, and you got to build trust. But at the college level, it's like they're a little bit more mature. Like we have a 23-year-old in our program. She's an adult, so you just have more adult conversations that they're easier to talk to, I feel like. And that might be a girl's thing too, is they might talk a little bit more than dudes do. And then I love that the flexibility of just spending time with the players too. Like you can take them out to lunch, they can come over for dinner. They can pop in and watch some film. So it's just kind of, I guess, a more comprehensive approach, and honestly a little easier to build relationships faster. I feel like I've built some really strong relationships already in just a few months. But yeah, I'm really excited about everything, and just to see what's going to translate to the college level. I love the idea of, playing in a conference and trying to get to a conference tournament. And, we've got games at North Carolina and at Duke. And if you told me I'd be coaching in those arenas a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you. So that's kind of a bucket list thing for me, which will be fun. I've always wanted to go to those venues, but to be able to coach in them that's a dream, man.
That's awesome, Coach. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun and just a great experience, as you said, to be able to go to some of those venues and coach, but also some of the things you talked about as you transition into the college game. And really, really appreciate your perspective on this process. And I think as other coaches consider making that transition, I think there's a lot of good information there for them.